Welcome, y'all. Some of the old timers in the audience will know me. I've been a part of the Apple IT world for a long time. My first device management system was NetOctopus, which let me use AppleScript to make registry changes on Windows NT Server 4. I may be slightly old. Today I'm here to talk about something I've been working with that I think is an underappreciated tool, PowerShell on macOS. I know what some of you are thinking. It's a little weird, but I love that goat. Yeah, PowerShell. It's on a Mac. It's been around for a while now. It's even regularly updated. To set expectations clearly, this is a 30-minute session. In 30 minutes, we're not doing anything even resembling a deep dive. But I hope I can give you something to think about, and I think that's important. This is a quote from Range by David Epstein, and I think it's a really important concept. The more you know, the wider your range of knowledge, the higher a chance you have to come up with solutions that are really the best, that are the best options. Almost like having and knowing how to use a wide variety of tools is useful or something. And this is not to bag on any other scripting language. I mean, I'm well known for my deep love of AppleScript, but I also like PowerShell. I use a lot of different things. I think PowerShell in the right situation can be incredibly useful on a Mac, especially if you're trying to manage different platforms. PowerShell is really good at that. So some basic information. PowerShell has been general availability on macOS since 2018. Started with PowerShell Core 6.0. Current version is 7.2, 7.3's in beta testing right now. And it's based on .NET 6.0. If you want to download it, you can do it through Homebrew. Microsoft has a good set of instructions for that. You can also just go to GitHub PowerShell page and download from there. They've got long-term stability releases. They've got beta releases, so you can set up your production, your dev, your testing environments with whatever works for you. Requires at least macOS 10.13. I don't think that's going to be any surprise to anyone. At least it shouldn't be. Right now, I would have to say the best IDE on macOS for PowerShell is Visual Studio Code. It integrates really well with VS Code. And yes, I know the issues with VS Code. But for PowerShell right now, it's probably your best bet. There are some differences between the Windows and not Windows versions. The biggest things are the CIM, WMI commands. Those don't exist on non-Windows platforms, so you're not going to get them on the non-Windows versions of PowerShell. There's some PowerShell diagnostic stuff, some job scheduling, some workflow commands that aren't going to exist on non-Windows PowerShell. There's no application scripting in PowerShell on macOS. The closest you get is VBA for Microsoft Office apps on the Mac that aren't Outlook. That's about it. It's really that application scripting in PowerShell. You're either linking over to AppleScript, which you can do, or whatever scripting implementation an application wants to use, or you're not doing it. There's no bridge there. Obviously, it's not a core macOS component. You know, it doesn't ship with the OS. That just isn't a thing that happens. So you have to install it separately. It's a fairly easy install. Literally, it's a folder copy if you want. What can it do? A lot of things. First, you can use it if you're dealing with Azure, Office 365, Microsoft 365. You can manage the heck out of Azure with it. There's AWS modules. You can use it with SSH to manage other machines if you want. SSH, about everything supports it. Even Windows has a built-in SSH client anymore. If you can call it from the shell, you can call it from PowerShell. You can run PowerShell commands from within things like AppleScript via do shell script, calling out to PWSH. You can use AppleScript UI primitives with PowerShell, which fills in the one glaring gap PowerShell has. Creating UI components in native PowerShell is just awful. So being able to use AppleScript UI features like display dialog, choose from list, choose file, choose folder, that kind of thing, and make use of those, by shelling out to AppleScript makes up for a lot. There's a large number of modules available. So there's a website, PowerShell Gallery, PowerShellGallery.com. And as you can see, you can select by operating system. And there's currently about 610
Modules for PowerShell works really well. There's a lot of AWS stuff. There's a lot of Azure stuff. There's a lot of Teams modules, email, that kind of thing. So there's a fairly wide selection of third-party modules you can use with PowerShell on a Mac. It's not just you're stuck with like 2 half-baked modules in the core language and that's it.
As I said, it works really well with AppleScript and OSA. Again, if you can use it with OSAScript, you can use it with PowerShell, so that's kind of handy. The other nice thing is that it's really portable. So 100% of your PowerShell install basically is in /usr local Microsoft PowerShell and then a version directory. And they actually segregate out the production versus the beta versions really well. And I've even done a couple of posts on my blog about how you can build a macOS application, at least in AppleScript Objective-C, that has the entire PowerShell implementation in the resources folder of that application bundle and call PowerShell from within the application if you want. So even without Windows or Linux, you can do a lot just from a Mac with PowerShell. It's kind of cool. What do we got here? Okay, so one of the biggest advantages of PowerShell is, and you can do this with a lot of languages, to be honest, is you can write a lot of PowerShell modules, aka plugins in PowerShell. I wrote one so on Windows, there's a thing called Get Computer Info, and you run it, and it gives you lots of information about your computer, CPU, memory, that kind of thing. Current user, a lot of AD info, which doesn't really apply to the Mac.
I wrote a version of that for the Mac called Get-Mac Info. It does about what you'd think it does. It gets information about the Mac that it's running on. I do this in a variety of ways. There's a lot of calls out to the system info commands. I do some other things, uname, sw_ver. There's some call outs to, I use some AppleScript commands. The get uptime command is just a native PowerShell command. A lot of bash commands, who, that kind of thing. For getting the short username, I just OSAScript and get user ID of system info. So, and I could have done this all in bash, but I kind of wanted to show the different ways, the different environments that you can access from PowerShell. And as you can see, it gives you a whole list of things that's kind of useful if you just want to get basic information from a machine. And you can use this via SSH if you want. This is up, the source code for this is up on my GitHub site, and there's links to that at the end of the presentation. So yeah, you can write your own modules. The nice thing is also is you can also have modules that only work for a given user, a given set of users, or for everybody on a machine. So if you have admin-only modules, put those in the home directory for a local admin on a given machine, and only that admin can see those modules. Nice way to segregate out modules that could be potentially dangerous or reveal information we don't want the regular users knowing about. It understands a really wide variety of data types. Built-in support for arrays, key value pairs, built-in routines in the core language for handling things like comma-separated value lists, REST API data, JSON data, XML, all kinds of stuff. It has a built-in object type, which is really kind of handy. Show you that here real quick. So let's say I want to use just specific things out of Get Mac Info, right? So we're going to assign it to testvar, runs it and gets everything for it. And then from there, I can just pull out specific values that I need for use in other parts of a given script. So once it gets done, kernel task is marauding my machine at the moment. So if I want the boot device for this machine, there it is, /dev disk1s1. If I want the uptime for this machine, there it is. So again, really kind of handy, and you can do that for any value that's listed for Get Mac Info. If I want to know what variable type, what kind of variable testvar is, I can run the get type command on it, and that method on it, and it's going to tell me it's basically an ordered dictionary, which is a base type of system.object, which is why the dot syntax works. Again, really handy. It makes it much easier using in the rest of a script where you just need a specific command a specific piece of data without the label, without the name, and you don't have to do any other code other than variable dot key name. So, test var dot UTC offset gets you the UTC offset for the machine as it currently sits. Okay, back into Yield Keynote. Da, da, da. There's a built-in help system. Basically, it's git-help and then the module name to get help on a system, which, of course, I have because I try to be good that way. And again, I was teaching myself how this works. There's a Git Mac Info has its own built-in help system. So if I go Git, it also supports tab completion within Visual Studio Code, kind of nice. And so Git dash, are we gonna do the thing? Git dash Mac. Well, tab completion there. And this is the standard help that it's going to show you. Description, current keys, related links. If you go to that link, that's a link on my GitHub page that shows you more information about it. If I want to see examples, I add the example switch. So here's some syntax examples. You can throw as many of these as you want into your help system. So it helps people using this command understand how the command is going to work. You can get single values out of it, you can get multiple values out of it. I've got 2-3 examples. And if you do dash detailed, then that gives you everything in, you get all of the things. And there you go. So again, and this is all built within the script. I mean, the help system itself is just built in within the script. It's up here at the top. So here's the entire help, and they've got different headers, synopsis, description. If you go and look at the documentation for Git help, it gives you all this information. It's really detailed, and actually this is pretty easy to build into any script. It's not just modules. You can literally put a help system into a script if you want. It's slick. And something I really wish Apple would include, although that would require Apple to have a cohesive, coherent OS-wide automation framework, which we know they don't have. They have amazing documentation. The documentation for PowerShell is just some of the best stuff I've ever seen. Apple wishes they had automation documentation this good. I think at times they wish they had their basic developer documentation this good. So for example, here's a basic command, git PS drives. It shows you the drives that the computer you're running this command on can currently see. So we've got the basic syntax for the command and the variable types. But here's the thing. This explains what's going on with the command in the description. Look, syntax examples. Get a drive on the computer. Get all the drives that are supported by the current file system provider, including network drives. Check to see if a drive is in use as a Windows PowerShell drive name. Syntax examples, actual usable, actionable code samples. And this is for everything, right? This is not just, the parameters and what each parameter does in detail. Push location. I'm just picking these at random here. Again, the same thing. Code samples for everything. This is exhaustive in what you can do. And it's wild. And Microsoft does this. Their documentation, their support for PowerShell is crazy good. They've got an entire documentation ecosystem built around PowerShell. Here's the main documentation site. Literally everything you would ever want to know about PowerShell right there. Apple's got nothing to compare to this, and it causes people way more problems than it needs to, and it's not like Apple doesn't have the money.
Another thing is PowerShell community is really solid in terms of help. It's obviously heavily biased towards Windows, but the basic syntax of the language is not platform focused. It the syntax doesn't change based on a Mac or Windows. So the language is platform neutral enough that, the fact that most of the use is on Windows, not really a problem. The community is really good. And again, that documentation for it is just absolutely head and shoulders above anything Apple does or has ever done. It's cross-platform. It's at least as cross-platform as Shell. And in terms of syntax, it's a lot more consistent than Shell. You don't have this person decided to use this set of delimiters, that person decided to use that set of delimiters. There's the syntax is remarkably consistent both for built-in functionality and for third-party functionality. It's you're not going to have the radical syntax differences you can for different shell commands or within AppleScript between the core AppleScript language and the application implementation of the language. The syntax itself is really easily learned. Most of the commands are verb-noun combinations: get, macInfo, add, Azure DNS record config, that kind of thing. If you're getting the member of an object, it's object name dot data member. All variables start with a $sign. All comments start with a pound sign. Kind of convenient. It's not just dot syntax. Does a really good job of being compatible with full-on .NET syntax. So you're doing a bunch of stuff in PowerShell, and you decide you want to move into .NET to get additional functionality. .NET is available on macOS. Visual Studio is available for macOS. You can write entire applications, .NET applications on macOS. But if you learn PowerShell, you're halfway to 75% of the way of using full .NET. So it's a step up in getting more advanced features that you would require .NET and C# for. It's almost as if Microsoft thought, hey, our user level automation language ought to help you advance your learning so you can move into full-blown applications if you want. Kind of an interesting concept. Apple should learn from it. There's a free IDE, Visual Studio Code. I know a lot of people aren't Visual Studio Code fans, but it is really solid for PowerShell work. Right now, it's probably the best PowerShell IDE on macOS. And I say this as a very, very long time BBEdit user and fan. I love BBEdit. I love everything Rich has ever put out. But when it comes to PowerShell, the built-in shell environment in Visual Studio Code, the code completion, the ability to recognize modules, all kinds of things. It's just, if you're going to do PowerShell on a Mac, you're going to use Visual Studio Code if you want the best experience. And it includes, you can even debug your code within Visual Studio Code. So that's kind of handy too. Links right there. The top link is your main PowerShell download page. You have bugs to report, that's where you do it. Second link is your primary documentation page for PowerShell at docs.microsoft.com. The two dev blogs links, one's to a mostly defunct site, Hey Scripting Guy, which was a thing Microsoft ran for over a decade. That was literally like one guy who would just answer scripting questions from the community. You had a problem scripting with VBA or command.exe syntax or PowerShell. You could submit the questions and you'd get a lot of help from this. Official help for scripting. There's also the larger PowerShell community blogs link. That's a little bit bigger than Hey Scripting Guy. But again, those are people who work for Microsoft whose entire job is to help scripters, automation people do their, learn the language better, use the language better, get things done better. And it's official help from Microsoft. It's not random mailing list or a third-party site and you hope someone actually cares enough about your problem to have done it before. You get real good help there. Again, Apple should learn from this. Binky.com site's my site. The search term there is PowerShell. That's going to give you all the PowerShell posts I've done. And the last link is my GitHub site. That's got a lot of PowerShell stuff on there, some other things, but all the PowerShell projects I've done, including the Get Mac Info module, is also there. Virtual session, we don't really have any Q&A. And thanks for listening. I appreciate your time.